Episode 204 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Spencer Hauser and Peter Williams from SuperPacific, brought to you by Creative Live. Start learning for free today with their amazing selection of on-air classes. With over 1,500 curated classes in photography and video, money and life, craft and maker, art and design, and music and audio, there's something for everyone. I've watched many of their on-air broadcasts for free, or buy a class and own the content for life. Go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/creativelive and start building creative skills from the world's top experts today. I believe achieving success in the outdoor biz is dependent upon embracing the outdoor lifestyle and learning from outdoor leaders that came before you. If you agree, then listen up for tips, advice, and hacks about growing or starting your career in the outdoor biz. My name is Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. I've heard from outdoor retailers, brands, outfitters, and influencers that a constant challenge is engaging with new and existing customers. Multiple times a week, you scramble to post on social media, publish articles, blogs, videos, and more in order to grab attention. The problem is these posts are on passive mediums, which lead to limited engagement and action. Today, a better option is a podcast, but you might think you don't have time, budget, or talent to produce a podcast. You do, and I'll show you how. Your podcast will reach more customers, helping them learn and get inspired, which will lead to stronger relationships and more sales. With a broader reach to an unlimited amount of customers, there is a clear opportunity to meaningfully impact a huge number of people. Your podcast will deliver these results and more, and I will show you the way. Go to podcastersworkshop.com/brainstorm to schedule your free brainstorm call, and we'll get your podcast on the path from idea to published. Visit podcastersworkshop.com/brainstorm. This episode is one of a special series I'm doing with Spencer Hauser and Peter Williams. They are in the early phase of their startup SuperPacific, and we thought it would be fun to chronicle what it's like to develop a new product from scratch and launch a new brand. We'll drop a new episode every couple weeks as we talk about how they came up with their idea, what the initial steps were, and all the wins and challenges along the way. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to talk to you, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
Yeah, good to be chronicling or categorizing or telling your story. It's going to be a fun podcast and a fun journey for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're very excited about this whole thing.
So how'd you get into the outdoors? How'd you get introduced to the outdoors when you were kids? Is that what happened?
Yeah, this is Spencer. So I grew up in upstate New York, rural upstate New York, and, kind of in an old farmhouse with 60 acres of land. Excuse me. And so outdoors was just part of life. I just spent all my time outside and making forts in the woods with my buddies and BMX tracks and camping out all summer long, at whomever's house, because all my buddies, had lots of land and stuff like that. And then, from high school, got into mountain biking and rock climbing and was always into skiing. My mom and my dad skied with me a little bit. But it's outdoors has always just kind of been
kind of a lifestyle for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Peter, how about you?
Really similar story. I grew up in North Carolina outside of Raleigh. And we lived on some land, out the back door. It was like pasture, a couple ponds, and a bunch of woods. My grandparents were our kind of only immediate neighbor. And then through the woods, as I recall, it was just sort of a junkyard and a stable and just a bunch of woods. So that was kind of like the default setting, was after school or whatever, go out. And my mom had a bell she would ring when it was time to come in for dinner.
Yep. My mom had a whistle.
Nice. We were free range kids before they were free range kids.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. And my family was really ocean oriented, so we would go down to the beach in North Carolina. We spent a lot of time, poking around the Outer Banks. My dad and mom were both they used to race sailboats in their youth, so we spent a lot of time on boats and surfing, fishing, and just doing stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool. So, and did you guys go away to college then?
I did. I left immediately after high school and went to college in Colorado. So I spent 4 years at Colorado College and started out studying geology. But they let you sort of design your own curriculum if you could sort of prove to the powers that be that it was a legitimate path of study.
Nice.
So I ended up leaving with a degree in natural resource management, but it was sort of a self-directed education, kind of after my sophomore year.
Very cool. Spencer, how about you?
Yeah. So I was encouraged to go to college, but I had to pay for my own college, and this was in the mid '80s. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I've taken a few swings at college. In my early 20s, I went to SUNY New Paltz for a little while, but that was mostly because it was at the base of the gunks, and there was rock climbing and mountain biking. And I didn't last too long there, and eventually, made my way to the West Coast, to Oregon for a while. Went to Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT. That was my longest kind of stay.
Wow.
Went to school for industrial design. And then girls kind of pulled me away from that. And I came back out to the West Coast and intended to get back to school, but it never really panned out.
Life got in the way. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so while you guys are on this SuperPacific project, you have day jobs, right? Tell us about those.
I have a day job. I work full time for like a, kind of a global brand that's based out of Portland.
Gotcha.
I work in advanced innovation there.
Okay. Spencer, you?
I'm actually working full time on SuperPacific.
Oh, good for you. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of pulled the trigger on this back in, decided, well, it was originally going to be November. I was going to start working full time, but it was December that I started working full time on this.
Okay.
I've got, for the past about 4 years, I was in operations management for an aerospace manufacturer. And then previous to that, I had owned my own business for about 15 years and a small manufacturing company, and had also owned a small a brand, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. So tell everybody what you're doing. You're embarking on an entrepreneurial journey. Tell our listeners about SuperPacific and what problem you're trying to solve. What specifically are you, product-wise, I guess?
This is Pete. So I have a 4.5-year-old son, and Spencer and I got to know each other at my previous job, where we worked at a design consultancy that was sort of specialized in the intersection of hard and soft goods.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hit it off there and have stayed in touch since. And that is kind of a prologue to the story. But I have a 4.5-year-old son, and we try to get out as much as we can. And Spencer and I were just kind of relating one afternoon. We were hanging out about how much work goes into getting your family out for the weekend. And,
it's just me, and it's a lot of work just to get me out for the weekend.
You spend a half day just kind of like getting your shit together.
Right.
So anyway, I was a carpenter for a long time, and have always sort of lusted after the idea of a conversion van and going through the whole build out process. That just sounds magical to me. Mm-hmm. But the reality, after my family and myself really looking at it and like trying to find the right van on Craigslist and getting into it, we just realized we don't have the budget for it. And even if we did, we really don't have anywhere good to park it. Mm. And we don't have a life that really a conversion van works as a daily driver.
Well, as I was going to say, as a conversion van, if you don't have a budget just to buy a junker and sit there and park it and work on it in your spare time, it becomes a regular vehicle that you have to use. And that's exactly. A whole nother layer.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. So like there was nowhere to park any dedicated recreational vehicle, whatever it was. So I went through this whole arc of like conversion van for sure. It's going to be amazing. What a fun project. And then it doesn't feel that realistic at this moment in life. So what about like a slide-in camper? And again, got to store it somewhere. What about a trailer? Still have to store it somewhere. And I'm not particularly enamored of the idea of towing a trailer, although like they do seem awesome for a small family.
Yeah.
And so we were just kind of spitballing and looking at the like really kind of lightweight and integrated rooftop tent market. And like got kind of excited about the idea of just like building one, because there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
But nothing was like exactly addressing the situation that I have. Mm-hmm. With our combined background, it felt like we could. So we sort of started out with the idea of like, yeah, that'd be a fun project. Let's take it on. Let's do it. I'll my introduction into product design was kind of through soft goods. So So I could handle the sort of tent portion of it and spend the background in metal and motorsports and aerospace set him up well for the metal side.
Cool.
So yeah, it started out just as a fun project, and then we dug into the doing like really pointed design research on it and looking at what else was out there and kind of reading some forums, and that led into the idea of like, oh, you know what? There might be something bigger than just like a fun summer project for us. There might be actually a bigger audience that has the same problem that we're facing.
Right.
Oh, cool. So are there any entrepreneurs in either of your families? Anybody else done this kind of thing? Your background, or anybody you knew? Or, I mean, obviously working as designers, you had experience for people that had created stuff from scratch, businesses.
Yeah. So on my side of my family, my dad has always kind of been, both my parents are very creative, and my dad's been mostly self-employed, since I was little, and had his own business. And my mom was an art teacher, and she ended up becoming a principal later in her career. Mm-hmm. But she's retired, and she has her own small little crafts business.
Gotcha.
And so they've always kind of done that. And then, most of my extended family has either had some sort of side hustle that they've done, in addition to their full-time job, or they've been successful business people. Mm-hmm. So, most of my family's kind of done something.
So they're a little entrepreneurial. I got that. Yeah. Okay. Peter, how about you?
Similar story on my side. My dad, I don't recall him ever like having a job where he had a boss and, reported to anyone, but, he's always been very committed to work and built up a business. When I was young, he was a contractor, doing, I think, generally like commercial construction. And then that's sort of evolved into more of a development type of career over the course of my life.
Gotcha.
And my uncle was another big kind of mentor for me, and he was a carpenter as well. And he specialized in high-end custom remodels, residential remodels. So I spent a summer working for him, and he kind of showed me the ropes with regards to like the trade of carpentry. Mm-hmm. And just kind of set me up to go down a path.
So this isn't foreign to either of you. You've seen it done. You've been part of businesses that have done it. You've seen it in your family. So that makes a lot of sense. I was wondering when we first got to talking, I said, man, how did these guys, there's got to be something in the background that inspired them to do this, right?
Yeah, we had one crazy night one time. We said, let's start a business.
I've heard of businesses. People do that.
Right. How hard can it be?
Exactly.
So how far along on the journey are you? Do you have prototypes at this point, or are you still in the design phase?
We have proof of concept prototypes. Both Pete and I are pretty. We're pretty comfortable we're pretty comfortable prototyping product, right? Yeah. So we've done enough things to prove to ourselves that what we want to do is going to work. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the final stages of CAD design for a bunch of the metal work, and I'm about to send that out this week. Let me back up here a little bit. One of the main things of this company is that we're going to outsource most of the kind of parts components, and we're just going to bring them in-house and assemble them ourselves.
Gotcha.
So to that end, he and I are both putting packages together, sending them out to soft goods vendors, sending them out to metal shops and machine shops and stuff.
How'd you come up with the materials? How'd you decide on the materials to use? Or have you done that yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress right now. Like I went to a vendor that specializes in maritime. They're kind of their niche. One of their niches. They serve a lot of different niches, but one of their niches is like maritime textiles. Mm-hmm. And I went to them and just had a conversation about the project. I've worked with them a fair amount over the years, and had a conversation with them about the project and sort of the use cases. And the fabric portion of this thing is going to spend the majority of its life crushed down underneath the hard shell through like a pretty wide, potentially a very wide temperature range.
Right.
They need to bring up and perform under tension and be waterproof. And I just kind of talked to them about the materials they carried, and we worked through what would perform best in that environment, what would be the best way to approach waterproofing it, what's going to be the most repairable option, because this thing we're building is going to more than likely outlast the lifespan of the trucks that it's mounted to. So, all of that is like a serious consideration. I have enough background in it to feel like I can have a pretty informed conversation with an expert.
Yeah,
and
gotcha. Yeah.
just drew on their expertise to make the final decision.
So you can get it done.
Yeah. So, and then this thing's going to have a pretty significant metals component to it. And, I've been drawing on kind of a variety of experiences in my life and career to kind of make the choices that we've made on how to build this thing, what we're going to build it out of. And so, having spent some time in aerospace, I really like the idea of things that are constructed out of sheet metal, formed and riveted sheet metal. It can be really, really lightweight. It can be very, very strong. And also, with the economy being so good over the past few years, at least on the aerospace and manufacturing side, finding skilled people, skilled machinists, skilled welders, things like that, it's pretty difficult here in the Northwest.
Everybody's working.
Everybody's working, and I know how to weld. I know how to machine stuff, and owning a business that has a bunch of CNC machines or has a bunch of welding cells and things like that, it can be kind of capital intensive.
Right.
And so not only is the equipment expensive, but the labor is expensive.
And space. I mean, you gotta have space to store all that stuff and let it sit there. Right? You don't want to be getting it out and using it and putting it away every night.
Right. And not that, not to be like a super capitalist here, and I don't want to pay my labor or anything like that. I want to provide jobs for quality jobs for people.
Right.
But I just know that there's coming from my experience in aerospace, there's just not people out there to hire.
Yeah, at least not right now.
Yeah. A lot of that informed the way that we designed this, and the decisions we made around materials and how we put it together. So,
gotcha.
Farming parts out to shops that really are experts at what they do, and then bringing the parts in and being able to assemble them, relatively simply in house, I think is kind of
gives you a leg up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're hoping that sets us up to be able to kind of like be responsive to demand,
right.
Going down relatively easily without having to make massive internal adjustments.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So from zero to now, through all the process, the research, starting the business, what's been the most challenging, would you say? Was it the initial decision to go for it, or was it once you went for it, holy shit, now we're in it?
Yeah, for me, once we put money in it, I just quit sleeping. Quit sleeping.
Well, that makes sense.
We raised some money from friends and family, and that's on the line now. I go to bed and I just my mind just grinds.
Well, there's solutions for that, but we won't go into that. That's a different podcast.
I think for me, it's taken a lot longer to kind of get started. I think Peter and I both we're kind of high detail guys, and we do a lot of planning. And my game plan on paper was like 3 weeks long, and it's been 3 months, and it's like, oh man,
right.
So, I just think
it always takes longer than you anticipate. But the other thing, at the stage that you're in, one of the things, at least from some of the creative pursuits I've done, podcasting and photography and all that stuff, is oftentimes we let perfection get in the way of done. And I think sometimes when you're just starting out, it's like, just get it done, and then we'll polish it up later.
Totally, Rick. You don't know the crazy ideas. I'm up at night thinking about just what we're gonna do with this thing, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, dude. You just have to sew a straight line.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So, so we'll get into some of those details in the next episode. Let's go through some of the the personal stuff that I ask people on the regular Outdoor Biz podcast. Do you guys have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity or help you defocus on that project? You meditate, walk the dog. Obviously, you get a lot of activity with your kids.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I've been playing soccer on Sundays. This pickup game for about 10 years.
Oh, and cool!
It is. I love my family. I love my wife and kids and my dogs, but I look forward to Sunday soccer. That kind of keeps me sane. And I just turned 50, and stretching and core strengthening has become a very important thing to me this past year. So, I've got this kind of workout routine, this foundation training, kind of exercises that I do. So those are my big stress relievers.
Cool. Yeah. Peter, how about you?
My main routine is just spending a lot of time thinking about how much more effective I would probably be if I had a routine, I'm sort of making fun of myself, but it's also true. I am pretty detail oriented and tend towards perfection. So I have this idea that there's probably a morning routine that would triple my output that I just haven't figured out.
Okay. Well, you never know. It might not. I mean, that, we all have our thing. So it's.
Well, it isn't right now. I'll tell you that. I get a lot of exercise. I try to make a real point of just when I get home at the end of the day, my typical weekday, I drop my son off at preschool and get home kind of around dinner time, depending on how the workday goes. And I just try to that time between dinner and bedtime with my family, I try just to put my phone down, which I'm sort of ashamed to admit is a struggle. But I try to just be really present with them in that time.
Yeah, good. Cool.
And I strive to get some good form of exercise, go for it every day, but realistically it happens about half that.
I'm about the same. Yep.
Exercise is definitely key to my sanity.
How about favorite books or podcasts, or you get inspiration from something like, you guys read any great design books or great business books that move the needle, or podcasts?
So, not to
grease the
wheel too much. Yeah. But I gotta say, I really love your podcast.
Oh, thanks.
Has been on heavy rotation for me for the past probably 4 months or so.
Cool.
Channel Mastery also.
Kristen does a great job. Yeah.
Yep. Really enjoy that. I'm also a big fan. There's a podcast called 99% Invisible, which, and it's a kind of a design and architecture podcast, but it's kind of design of everything. And it's a great podcast.
I'll check that out. Cool.
Yeah. I also, and as far as reading and books go, I do read a lot. I read a lot of science fiction. I have a really hard time reading business books. I find that, and maybe this is me because I haven't finished the books, but it seems like a lot of business books tell you all about the first couple of chapters, or I'm going to teach you how to do all this stuff.
Right.
And it's like, man, just come on, let's get to it. I don't, let's stop talking about it. But I did read the American Icon, the Alan Mulally and Ford book a couple of years ago, and that was pretty amazing. Had a lot to do with streamlining manufacturing business and I haven't read that. I'll link to all that stuff in the show notes too. I haven't read that one. I'll add that to the list. Yeah. Peter, you got much time to read?
Man, that's another thing I would love to say yes to, but the reality is I've read about half of a ton of books in the last couple of years.
Sometimes that's all you need to read.
Well, it's true. It's true. The book that is halfway done on my bedside table right now is A Finer Future by Hunter Levins.
Okay.
Looking at kind of the climate crisis and the ways that businesses can address it, the various ways that businesses and governments can address it.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah, it's ultimately a fairly positive spin on a kind of challenging situation.
Yeah. Well, we'll link to that in the show notes too. Yeah. How about, do you have a favorite outdoor gear purchase under $100 for all those camping trips you're going to go on?
I bought a windbreaker. I think it's called a Houdini from Patagonia.
Okay, yeah.
A couple years ago, and that thing, I mean, you can put it in your back pocket, and it's like, I take it with me everywhere and use it all the time.
Yep, that's a good one.
Handy.
Yeah, I got a couple of things that I got recently. One of them, and I'm going to consider this outdoor gear. It's these Kinco gloves. They're just basically work gloves. They're called the Hydroflector, and they're these waterproof, insulated kind of work gloves. And I got them. My neighbor had a pair, and we went. We do a fair bit of crabbing. Go get Dungeness crab on
nice.
My boat. And man, these waterproof insulated gloves—they're the most awesome thing for crabbing in the middle of winter.
Cool.
They're just great.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll link to those in the show notes. As we wrap up episode 1 here, is there anything you'd like to ask of our listeners or say to our listeners that'll stick with us to the end and see how we turn out?
I mean, I would broadly just encourage everyone to reach out at us, through our emails.
Cool.
If they're interested or have questions or, thoughts, we're wide open right now.
Yeah. And really just, kind of check our stuff out. We're entering into a marketplace that's got a few key players in it. But I think that our product will pretty quickly set itself apart. And, we're very open and we're pretty open guys. So, if people have questions or
cool. Well, we'll put your emails in the show notes. Do you have a website yet or anything, Instagram, any of that kind of stuff?
We got a meeting tomorrow night where we're going to map out our website, man.
Cool.
Yep.
Coming. We're going fast. We got a logo right now.
Nice.
Yeah. We do have we have an Instagram. It's super_us. And I think we've got 3 or 4 posts on it at this point. So
it's pretty sparse right now.
Yeah.
super_pacific.us.
Yep.
Cool. That's Instagram. All right. We'll link to that too. That'll be cool to see some photos in that. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, well, it's been fun, getting the lay of the land on episode 1. We'll tackle episode 2 here in a couple weeks and see what kind of progress you've made.
That sounds great.
Sounds good, Rick.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. Have a good night, man.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for listening. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, be sure and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure and go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Have a great week and be sure to get outside.